Shalom Lachem. In our parasha, Parashat Chukat, we are introduced from the very start with the idea of Chukat haTorah. The Para Aduma is a commandment which doesn't make sense, which is self-contradictory, and nevertheless, we are commanded to uphold it. In what spirit do we approach a mitzvah like this? How do we handle it? Is it just a matter of discipline, of demonstrating our loyalty and our obedience? It seems to me that in the parasha itself, we have a theme which gives us a tool to approach this kind of situation. When Moshe Rabbeinu sends a message to the king of Edom, recapping the recent history of Am Yisrael, he says, "Vanitzak el Hashem, vayishma kolenu." Now, the Vilna Gaon had a son, Rabbi Avraham, who wrote a commentary on the Sidur, and in that commentary, he discusses the phrase, Shma Kolenu. What's the difference between Shma Kolenu and Shma Tfilatenu, Shma Bakashatenu? When we're talking about a Bakasha or a Tfilah, we're talking about a need which we address to HaKadosh Barukh Hu, a need which is well enunciated, well articulated. We spell out exactly what we want and why we need it and why it's so important for us that Hashem should give us what we're asking for. But there are times when our need can't be articulated, can't be spelled out logically, it can't be explained. And at those times, we ask Hashem, Shma Kolenu, just hear our yearning, hear our need, even if we can't put it into words. Rabbi Avraham goes on to demonstrate the correctness of this interpretation. For example, he brings the pasuk, Kol asher tomar lecha Sarah, shma b'kola. Sarah's demand that Avraham throw Yishmael out of the house to Avraham Avinu was totally inexplicable, couldn't be understood. How could I, Avraham Avinu, how could I be expected to totally dissociate myself from Yishmael, who's my flesh and blood, he's our son. When he was born, it was an answer to a prayer. How could we do such a thing? And comes HaKadosh Barukh Hu to Avraham Avinu, and he says, you're right, to you it doesn't make sense, you can't explain it, you can't fathom it, but I'm telling you, Sarah is right. Shma b'kola. Likewise, Hashem says to Yitzchak that he will uphold the brit with Yitzchak as a reward for Avraham Avinu, listening to Hashem. Eikav asher shama Avraham b'koli. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave many commands, implicit and explicit, to Avraham Avinu, which didn't make sense. Those are the Asara Nisyonot that were Avraham Avinu was tested in. Hashem told Avraham Avinu to go to the Promised Land, to go to Eretz Yisrael, and then a short time afterwards, he brings a famine which forces Avraham to leave. Hashem promises a son to Avraham after many long years of waiting, and then he tells him to sacrifice him. All these things made no sense to Avraham. He couldn't understand him. And when Hashem sums up the fact that Avraham Avinu withstood all these tests, he says, Eikav asher shama Avraham b'koli. Even when it didn't make sense to him, even when the matter could not be explained, he simply heard my desire, my command, my position, the way I saw it. He identified with it, and he took it, and he did it. Now, getting back to our parasha, we have the story of Haknani Melech Arad. And Am Yisrael asked for HaKadosh Baruch Hu for his help, and it says once again, Vayishma Hashem b'kol Yisrael. Now, why is this phrase used here, Vayishma Hashem b'kol Yisrael? We think about this story as Chazal understood it. Haknani Melech Arad, who they say was secretly Amalek, Vayish mimenu shevi. They took a captive. Chazal say they took one captive, a maidservant. And for this captive, Am Yisrael was willing to go to war, not simply war, but a total war. Melchemet Chorma, as we would say today, Melchemet Cherem. They were willing to risk perhaps thousands of lives of soldiers of Am Yisrael in order to save this one captive. Right? This is something, of course, which ties in with our own current experience. So objectively, this could make no sense. Why go to such national effort and take such tremendous risks to save one person? But nevertheless, Am Yisrael felt that this is what had to be done. And despite the fact that it didn't make that much sense, Vayishma Hashem b'kol Yisrael. Right? Hashem accepted the viewpoint of Am Yisrael, and he identified with it, even though it could not be really explained well why we're doing this. And he answered the prayer of Am Yisrael. So then there is such a thing as a level of understanding which doesn't come from the fact that things are logically understood in objective terms, that they can be explained. We know this from our own experience, and then when we hear HaKadosh Barukh Hu giving us a command which we can't understand, it shouldn't seem so strange to us, shouldn't seem so unusual, because this is part of life. There are things that you can't explain, but nevertheless they don't lose anything from their truth. There's a level of truth which is the truth of HaKadosh Barukh Hu, which he knows to be true. It's something which he can't explain to us, but nevertheless it doesn't become any less true because it can't be articulated. In that sense, we can readily identify with these things because we know about them from our own experience. Zot Chukat haTorah. Shabbat Shalom.